BM Abusia for and then so Shaye, our Royal TV, na Jumedino, Wake Up Africa. I said every before, yes, sorry, a big remuha and a young coupon if free, a big remuha and I Yeshua if free, a big remuha and I Israel, and I see now if we just say, a big remuha and I did ball fitting and send Bibia a chassis. It's the F and Nika Akona some union and you favorite memo. Now, so yes, a baby mine, your tongue, your birthright, you need some mechanics and your right there. Your tongue, your munyam, your tongue, your penny, your tongue, your bibia, and your market couple, Sabi, or no such a chatting. And then you did and come here to now what you chair more your common Judaism versus Hebrewism, now in a and Common Pinoa and I, Ibidi, and the Afa. This very topic meaning so what you we'll share Wake Up Africa, Free the Mind movement. It was so now what you try and a Free the Mind movement a bell launch it from Masadi was him and then you ask him to cry nipa a book she a kubu one na a sing as what you me as what you me as I feel like you're going to say nipa no at no creno nipa no any be nipa no evuno han no kasa Yeshua han nipa evuno meaning the nana akoshia te chel aprebi na me kan se nyame ya aduma 2nd December teni 2nd December eso a year session bibi ani so de no ewia dumi no pepepe ekoso ya enye aseketu akra bibia no na nyame ya aduma na ocha e ba besi mu nso no Free the Mind movement e Kumasi branch obomode pa na omo aba enti no eye memenda na kwesi memenda di anim ye omode na afọ ni e kire asim school park me so no me no pepepe na ya hwedwumadi na se na e de ahyehye so se de be ya so obetumi ehun nyoma e koso ni titiru ene ewie brain mo se ye ewie yu se ya hyase ko ni na ni be hunu na yakoso awza for mo so mo wo ye o my God mu na mo pese mo ne amanfo bi edi kita ho na mo tensem bi ase efa Free the Mind movement ho ana mo hia materials ni bi ni titiru ene the scriptures we Hebrew scriptures sa scripture we a Hebrew means in kwani wo we for di because koko di ba kokra nim we na be chiro no ankasa ene dia eka e Hebrew na ena ewu behu onyankompon di ankasa obehu no sa emoma we mu obehu Yeshua ono so ne won sem ne keka ho nyina we ene chiro konkra me no mi no hia the scriptures asem no eni etimi a wani na tobi obomode na ofrefre numbers bi ya me de ba to dwere ya na se numbers bi a egu screen so ani nyina no bonsa ebetumi akabi anya nonko ya was the book of Jasher. The book of Jasher is also aba ya eba bebuawo ama unsa etumi aka na se wotumi enya enkwagye ya enya asem kitwa kra obi say Yeshua is salvation na the book of Jasher and no na behuno Joshua and afi 2 Samuel and woman nyina ewu mo and someone ya efa lot nyina ho na de nyina ewo the book of Jasher mo we will not reading ewu enye asem kitwa afi o ya see this ni bi so nyina no obetumi enye bi ni nyina na obefre numbers am de be ma wi ti mesro se modern pa na phone na obefa na paper and pen bi so a atwotwo ni nyina topics are on Wake Up Africa, a treaty, the origin of the white man, your abolition of marriage, GM foods, democracy, and artificial lady. Wake Up Africa CDC, ato enya no materials ahudu nyina no ye wo hia so sabe ka bi ebeboa wo ama watumi akọ wani no ni nyina etumi aboa ma bonsa etumi aka ne ahwe numbers na obetumi afre na wabisa nsem no ebi ona obwase nyina ene ne mpotam emomodin frɛ ya Dominic obefa frɛ 0242 543893 0242 543893 020 35 Mr. Mo 020 73 58836 020 73 58836 Mr. Kamina Ebefa. Actually, that for a friend of Adan, it was 020 42 5986. And you know from Frey, Mr. Mensa 020-741-2434. Isaac and so I will tap ready, Mumpusin Ahome 0543-757565. Koforia for every Kumi 0249-622212. Techiman for Empusu Kufi for Ahoma 0546 899430 Volta for so Antoinette Mamo Antoinette number is 0243-822647 0243-822647. Dada what takwa the number is 0244-446141. Amaku Jampa body on us was she also on us more friend on 0246-794479 0246-794479 and Christ so Israel more friend on 020-7782-482 Kumasi Fonso Fair Owusu 020-8236-052 Afe Mama Africa on also Kumasi more friend on 020-7782-481 Pamela wa Asaku more friend on 0241-500019 more friend numbers here Monsa ebe to me a company for na enyam nya webisa onso ebe yi mano 2nd December means to be Seshi branch of Free the Mind movement ye biano kra ewia dumi no pepepe me sheprem to breno na ye biano Seshi ejuna say I venue near John Bitter Clubhouse Yame Aduma and we are doing in the 2nd December. Mamika review said, and never say, Memon die in me. What do anybody share? I see. Now also Wake Up Africa, Free the Mind movement, a year additional, and Sa Ebeka be empire, one of the a come home. I won't buy you a laffy, or Sa Luciana say, come. And then, yet, what you come on last week, and that's an outrage. Yet is shares with Judaism versus Hebrewism. I'm not penny free aquaba. I don't know.
I was there.
Bokodi.
One penny.
I was there.
Oh, about that now. Be the ding.
Now, Tamus no unya once in there.
Oh, that's it. Oh, we'll be a BBC. Now, I'll compare Java. They say, no. They say, yes, you're baking kind. So, I see the air can be a brown. I'm not going to use it. Oh, my said the Oka Christian needs to Bible. No, sir. I say, what I said, to Bible. You enjoy the Aka. No, we're passing that. That's what we are not talking. Israel.
Nana.
Yes, who met me and some no.
Baby. I'm not for a shock. You for more than maybe my friend maybe say any kunya sa Talmudic no. Na
I want kasa omuobi.
Omo say come was some chere wo mo. Na maybe e kotu kutu nyina no omo say bibi o ma e fe no Sanhedrin nyina omo wo nsem na wo mu no e na omo ho abo wo mo.
Not just at Sedenka, Yaya Bible, no Christian, Yama win yabi.
Talmud, Bible, but Talmud, you may to get Talmud.
Mitch, I say, so I'm on Bible near Talmud, or more Talmud near your Bible.
Bible, dear, or you see the Torah, the Old Testament, no, the Uchi. The Uchi side,
the New Testament, no
Uchi.
I had Talmud no at a day.
Talmud, you know what I say? I check for no.
Opinions.
And all traditions be did I say about 7 million for Matthew can Mark 7:7.
Mark chapter 7. Mark.
Yes, you buy no or the cancer we say on no. Sabina Farasi for no attack no. no be can say was nti and the friends Talmud no traditions of men and our mind book Mark 7 verse 7.
And in vain do they worship me, teaching as teachings the commands of men. Forsaking the command of Elohim, you hold fast the tradition of men.
Watch it. What the other point, I'm going to look at nipa de atiti semu, sa and some no, and I'm book Talmud. It is not say, and a claim more value, a chain Bible.
Oh, no, your Bible can see a pan.
Sir, what's African I say? There is a Ugalia, Yankasa. Ni atro e de ato
ye de dia ye ntonyon
ya atro e de ato ho
wo fufu na je tete so papa baby
no onu san say the before say e pai nkwabata na say mo wontafo ni atro me de ato no mo enti no eye empanifo no traditions and a rabbinic opinion.
Okay.
Omo rabbis no omo opinions no my book so the mayor omo ko omo fi ya say enra na enti no to me sua enti no say Talmud na no no e na mo ka say so be a Christian a oye bu yi na ntwe mu ana tu say okay kai New Testament so a o say the papa da o so be some kwa de enti na say Jew for end ni say New Testament no wo mo anyi ni no so mo chi nto mo say e tro and I hear before say, a do media, woman from the shame, woman, a do media and a crepa. And a two, yes, to buy. Say, or ya jinkwa, or the civil Israel ma, and the GD. Right? And somebody is sure clean, no, in say, and a Fed Old Testament, your GD. No, woman do for the dear, a lot of time. So, the book of New Testament.
As it is practiced today, have anything to do with the patriarchs and prophets of the Old Testament? Nothing. Nothing at all. You see, I was raised in Judaism, and we were under the authority of the rabbis whose formulation of God and the world around us was based not on the Bible, but on the Jewish Talmud. Indeed, the rabbinic authority gave the first and final word on Jewish attitudes, Jewish belief, Jewish practice, and Jewish behavior toward the Gentiles, whom behind closed doors we called the Goyim. The rabbis put attitude before everything else, that we Jews were superior to the Gentiles in intellect, in morality, and as a race. And this is all spelled out quite specifically in the Jewish Talmud.
Entino eni hokwa eye book a usum krampa woni yo topon ahindi mu de eni hokwa na akokora entino obi hu ya eso ka se bia ye Jewfo no e different na ye break no last week no e be say time on 1948 no ba land no so no e ko ba say ya ba dia ye ma ye nkofo no ntumi mai na o ma kawo Russia no Umuni na mafi yebe fere asasene so ma ni kire ho say we are the people of the book. Umuni na abugu ho no na efi anya na efi what ho no mo woni nkanda. Nti na ebi masate a omodwane free land no so. Na me edi ho information e de kire ya last week no okay kan ye.
Last week right nya brand kan.
One can good until na e dey to anim no. Until enna Talmud no you know come kakra
Right.
Sir.
More Israelis leaving country.
I did it.
24th January 2004 Ghanaian time.
Sir.
A total of 270,000 Israelites left. Israelis.
Thank you.
Israelis left the Jewish country between 1990 and 2001. Among them, 68,000 were new immigrants from the former Soviet Union. Soviet Union.
Yeah.
According to a report published by Haaretz newspaper,
the biggest paper in Israel.
The report prepared by the Israeli Central Bureau of Statistics, CBS, on Wednesday to the parliament found that between 1990 and 2001, 906,000 people immigrated to Israel from the former Soviet Union, and 7.5% of them subsequently left the country. Most of the new immigrants who left Israel were not registered as Jews. The immigration rates from Israel in the 1990s among immigrants from the former Soviet Union was significantly higher than the immigration rate of the general population, notably that of Jews who were born in Israel, reports said. Laura Statesky, director of CBS's Immigration and Immigration Department, said she has no data on the countries to which Israelis immigrated, but it is believed that most immigrants head for Canada and the United States, while some of them return to their nations of origin. About 7,100 immigrants from the former Soviet Union emigrated from Israel in 2000 and 8,100 left in 2001. During those 2 years, more immigrants left Israel than in any other year since 1990.
Israel or mine, you can see what I say. If you hand or again me, no Sunday or Israel or Jew or Jew. You pay a program of Kumasi, everybody sorry, more can say Nigeria for Igbo for Crampo residents for Jerusalem. I'm so boa. We a Jew was say I'm so boa. Evidence for infant or John of him and what's it? So look, here we don't know. Hebrew for man till the of Fiano. Unto me can't say there will be evidence from far when you can. Land no Ghana for already what's it say? 1 week. You have to return back to your country. Because Jew for the someone who will be a Jew ni I will land also. And you tell you or say to me and to something Jew for they have to return, go back to their country. And you know what you say when you Jew ni one can and you be now or the Jew now but the secret of the Judaism you don't even know. And then no and you be a chairman for say even the Russia for Canadians, America for they didn't register them as a Jews. So they have to return them back to their country. How about you, the black man? Manusia, Namadanama opening. We are autonomia. Nothing. Yachechemu. To Yacheche Tamudimu. Manusi.
I was there.
Judaism. Hebrewism.
What does it?
Luta continua.
Sir, the chair and the food now. Bibia, the Bibia, of course, no. Of course, last week we were kind of quite fast one. Or maybe Zionism in a buy. Never
The term Zion is associated with the city of Jerusalem. The land of Israel has always been sacred, and it has inspired countless pilgrimages for displaced Jews seeking the return to Zion. Around the dawn of the 20th century, immigration to the land of Israel was especially popular because of a growing Zionist political movement. This modern Zionism, created by Theodor Herzl, centered around the belief that all Jews belong to a single nation and that they should establish a sovereign state to return to. Herzl published a pamphlet on the subject known in English as The Jewish State, and then organized the first World Zionist Congress in 1897 to discuss homeland options. During the next few decades, Jewish states were proposed in places like Alaska and Uganda, but Jerusalem, in the Palestine area, was the area that held the most significance for Jews. In 1917, Britain okayed a Jewish state in Palestine, and after the Holocaust, many other Western countries supported it as well. The State of Israel gained its independence in 1948. After the establishment of the Israeli government, the World Zionist Congress lost some of its power, but it is still around today as part of the World Zionist Organization. With millions of dollars in their budget, they work alongside the Israeli government to encourage Jewish settlement in Palestine and Jewish national sentiment through education. How does Zionism affect modern Israel? Well, since the early 1900s, many different forms of cultural Zionism have permeated the country. According to a study by the Israel Democracy Institute, almost half of Jews reportedly view themselves as affiliated with religious Zionism, which is the idea that original Jewish traditions should be preserved, and Jews should have a sovereign state in the Holy Land. However, many Palestinians call this area home too, and they resent the influx of Jewish immigrants there. So although Zionism has given a homeland and safe haven to a long-oppressed community, it has also flared territorial tempers in the Middle East and contributed to the current Israeli-Palestinian conflict. For a more in-depth look into settlements in the West Bank and how that's affecting politics in the region, check out this video from AJ+.
But religion aside, the Israeli government also encourages settlement by offering lower tax rates, subsidized housing, and easier loans.
The history of the House of Rothschild. Definition of Zionism. An organization of so-called Jews whose goal is to create a nation for Jews. Definition of Judaism. Jews collectively who practice a religion based on the Torah and the Talmud. Khazarian Ashkenazis. Good. The Rothschilds claim that they are Jewish, when in fact they are Khazars. They are from a country called Khazaria, which occupy the land locked between the Black Sea and Caspian Sea, which is now predominantly occupied by Georgia. The reason the Rothschilds claim to be Jewish is that the Khazars, under the instruction of the king, converted to the Jewish faith in or about 740 AD, but of course that did not include converting their Asiatic Mongolian genes to the genes of the Jewish people. 85 to 90% of Jews are Khazars. You'll find that approximately 85 to 90% of people in the world today who call themselves Jews are actually Khazars, or as they like to be known, Ashkenazi Jews. These people knowingly lie to the world with their claims that the land of Israel is theirs by birthright, when in actual fact their real homeland is over 800 miles away in Georgia. The 13th tribe, the Khazar Empire and the heritage.
The 13th tribe. We need in research. So as a 12 tribes of Israel, what's almost saying, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What's will be no swabber? Now we will be free. Maybe I saw free. Central Asia home. Number. Comes to say. Also, when I'm here, Bible move for. In the end, I have a research. About the map number. And what about the damage? Now about the campaign 17 from Sabuku. I will remember first. Now the account 17. I heard about this Jacob.
Okay. This was written before the full extent of the Holocaust was known. But that does not alter the fact that the large majority of surviving Jews in the world is of Eastern European, and thus perhaps mainly of Khazar origin. If so, this would mean that their ancestors came not from the Jordan, but from the Volga. Not from Canaan, but from Caucasus, once believed to be the cradle of the Iron race. Iron race, okay. And that genetically they are more closely related to Hun, Yugo, and Magyar. Okay. Hun, Yugo, and Magyar tribes. That's the seed of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Okay. Should this turn out to be the case, then the term anti-Semitism would become void of meaning based on misapprehension shared by both the killers and their victims. The story of the Khazar Empire, as it slowly emerges from the past, begins to look like the most cruel horrors which history has ever perpetuated.
Fantastic. Wow, the okay now. Ya chira babia, wo masin ifi. Wo be Khazars. Okay, I can Kimbula. No, the king of the Zionist empire. And a king of the attack you Mugani. If you go to Europe, almost settle where almost create almost settlements. Normally almost settlements you are only and happy Jew start this one. And the Zionism now you be kaka and what happened is the political wing already identify Jewish identity.
Okay.
Political wing and already identify book way prelude to Israel. The some about the kind if we have a Baba BC
okay. Book name
prelude to Israel. Alan Taylor.
Analysis on Zionist diplomacy, 1897 to 1947.
That's right.
Institute for Palestine Studies. Okay. A final misconception which needs to be clarified is the belief that Zionism is a completely democratic movement stemming from the Jewish masses and sustained by broad popular support. It would be more accurate to describe the Zionist phenomenon as directive for that is populism. Its former Theodore Herzl regarded him as the self-appointed director of a latent popular movement, and the leadership patterns which he founded became indigenous to Zionism. Within the context of this directive system, the army factions within the movement developed a party organization which achieved political expression through the Zionist Congress. Thus, organized Zionism combined elitist and democratic institutions, permitting the assertion of functional positions but retaining a leadership principle which provided unity of direction and purpose for an otherwise diverse movement.
It is Zionism, a secular and political movement seeking to reconstitute Jewish identity in the context of modern political nationalism. And you know, the one way around is saying we created the state of Israel, the foundation about the democracy. About the motto. Now, if you come back to scriptures in more, time be our because scripture, no, when you say Hebrew Messiah, only the Bible saving humanity. Like I said, president, and as a prime minister, and the saving humanity. There be scriptures not so more can say. If you know or a deliverer, or a redeemer, or a Messiah, or when a Bible will and so Israel, the creating prime ministers 12 and about the deal almost. And I'm saying Zionism, no. A political movement already identified Jewish, Jewish identity, and into and say, if you have nowhere in the scriptures, some say, there was this system. Now I think who's a continuity. The whole system is a but no sign of it. I didn't know Aquaco Bassa. So say no, a democracy coapono, again, America and our greatest ally. Now the supporter, America for the Israel for
foreign aid, the new imperialism. Okay. When the so-called anti-young incidents propelled black interests deeper into foreign affairs, several issues became clearer. Among them, the fact that since the end of World War II, the tiny state of Israel received more in U.S. foreign aid than over 40 nations in Black Africa. This lopsided foreign assistance policy continues in the Carter administration's FY 1981 budget proposal, with the sub-Saharan African nations receiving $739 million for development assistance, food aid, economic supporting assistance, and military sales. The 3 million citizens of Israel received almost $2 billion, including 785 million cedis for economic supporting assistance and $1.2 billion for military sales and credits, and an additional $5 billion for Israeli concessions in the Camp David Accord with Egypt. Pushing racism aside for a moment, one must look at the historical development of U.S. foreign aid policy to make any sense of this economic vision. Miss Norma, that's right, Miss Norma. Prior to World War II, foreign policy was concerned with the pursuit of national interests, with all assistance, economic and otherwise, to friends and enemies, judged by the benefits of oneself. With the emergence of the Marshall Plan in 1948, with its surface goal of rebuilding the countries of Western Europe and thereby protecting U.S. security, the game of foreign aid began.
That's but the woman here me and say, "Who sika tuturi dia America for the ma Israel, afibia sika for the ma Africa in Gra, you take support if America home, and you the ma Israel. The coming now be more peanuts, the only ma Israel for one." It's say we have who say the foundation is democracy and almost buy it. And then there were 12 prime ministers. We don't know almost from Poland, any Ukraine, any Ukraine, and Omaba, and Nigeria too. Now, so democratic structure no has created Israel. We are relegated rabbis, any Judaism, no, echo background. Now, so woman no can say, woman expecting Messiah. Structure that I'm going to do one more. Every say Messiah no structure. When the whole country, is so democratic, and when they say it, the now we are saying so. I can't tell you, yeah, gullible world, who Israel say, only the choosing of God. Ain't we are sorry, when you go room where you go bumpire, you go really war honor, you go really so the kaya. Some of support your sophobia, no, sir, you have a come once. Just how you know, who outsider. Israel no was a Jew for no womo die nyame na atusu womo nyame na ode womo ba ena nyame na ayesi edie nyina no yadwen eni adwendwen ni yayi nyina ne se enini enti no so eda bia ne pese e kire se ye ko ho president Kufuor time oyema ye former IGP insia you can't say Mr. Osu Sia Okoye ambassador ewo Israel Obafie Oba holiday no and Oba besra sabe na me ona bobo afena na ye eduma nti Oba e Oba kan say oh ma yiye mo who say yenzo betimi aye bibia ma Christopher etimi akọ Israel no makọ akọ hwehwehwe no niamia no Bible e ka ho nsem nti bibia nya ye be no Bible susu no ka sampa ofa be say o twe media chiri na eda o mo kokko launch any Ministry of Tourism and e koye saade e do mo launch eno 20th April 2007 the New Times schedule officer and e dey share mensa and ya ma ke say the kokko animu if you have no papers we dem go first start say omo organize tour because we who say Israel
Full
there.
Gospel International and other churches in conjunction with Shalom Travels and Tours. Wow. Ejumamba. Walk in Jesus' footsteps and explore the roots of your faith. Tour to Israel.
With their own kind of view. Where the headlines be, and I'm the Kamasen.
Tour agency announces pilgrimage to Israel.
If you say, we're an outsider, we're going to say a Kunkumbia, a Kunkun Sassy, yes, our Babu, Yaka, a Lipana Abaholo, I will be our only a Kunkun for one. And then the question I come. A Lipana or only a Kunkun for one. Until anyway, you are going to tours. A Bimuka Babasao organization, Oma Kwabadi, a whole report about. Yekoha, Yisiha, Yikuha, Hanya, your boss syndrome, Hanya, Koyi say, on your mobile, will be a bar, and will be a oak. The way in 2013, a Koba said, or the Mahamatari, or Musu said, or the Asophobia call home, now or more Aqua Bo, Empire, Ama, Ghana, Jacosia so much. Over Baba, and hold the air, send the Emma, I saw for people that didn't come in. Yeah, and you say, in the papers, 20th March 2013, graphic, President explains trip to Israel. Daily guide, show us sponsors. Oma will say, Omo, and the Bible territory, I'm a diaspora for Nakon. The President, explanation, the biographic.
Okay. President explains trip to Israel. I'll say, well, the government has come under a barrage of criticisms from a section of the public following reports that it is sponsoring 200 Ghanaian pastors perceived to be sympathetic to the National Democratic Congress on a pilgrimage to Israel at a cost of $2 million. Some Christian organizations have turned down the supposed sponsorship from the government and urge their members to stay out of the pilgrimage. For instance, the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference said the government had no business organizing pilgrimages for Christians or any other group of religion or of religious adherents. The president of the GCBC, that is the Ghana Catholic Bishops' Conference, Bishop Joseph Osei-Bonsu, was reported to have said that the money to be used in sponsoring the trip could be used in ameliorating the circumstances of rural dwellers by providing KVIPs, water and electricity for them. The criticism necessitated a response from the Minister of Sports and coordinator of the pilgrimage, Mr. Elvis Efriye Ankara. He issued a statement indicating that the government was only coordinating the pilgrimage and denied its involvement in the selection of the prospective pilgrims to favor pastors who were sympathetic to the NDC. It is said the cost of the sponsorship package for the 200 pilgrims, including airfare, hotel accommodation, and feeding, was approximately $600,000 and not $2 million, as was being speculated in a section of the media.
The secretary there because you're covering land. Hey, these are for the minister who move a cognac of Bompire, or my concon, a cognac of Bompire, and in the can. When we now about the sea, a call 18 September 2017, about 50 by
the one I just read, Daily Graphic. Wednesday, March 2020.
That's right. Anna, Sana, about 50 by 18 September 2017, Christians begin pilgrimage to Israel.
Right, we're a Daily Graphic. Christians begin pilgrimage to Israel. The first batch of Christian pilgrims left Ghana last Saturday to begin a 7-day visit to some of the historical and religious sites in Israel, led by the Ministry of Chieftaincy and Religious Affairs, Mr. Samuel Kofi Jamesi. The 15-member pilgrims is made up of pastors, musicians, and representatives of the religious bodies. While in Israel, the team will devote time to pray for Ghana, President Nana Adonai Ford and his ministers rather. In 2013, a similar event was organized for some churches and religious leaders.
And you know, because I'm a Moroccan car wearing and now Samia we see who Israel assassin. Samia, yeah, Krumbia, internet,
will be all crowd or Sabah.
Jordan. Why? We buy a baby.
Wow.
Live sea, it wasn't for a friend of Dead Sea. And children will know it may go out when you a toss of pimples or all this last hour.
the book mafia.
Let me love you. So, dear, now so say, or mine. One more Jews, one more Israelis, Abrabono, it is saying the dark side of them. Oh, Baba, the king kind. Sa documentary, Israel, whole house of the Middle East.
Hey,
Roman Casanova, whole house of the Middle East. After the Talmud Nisoka Craig. Na enenu de oba behu eni de oba ba ti ohu bedu enu so kwa bro no comedies because you know we one kasa pro aha me tip
of the iceberg
sa afi no ba be ejinu amnesty report you obekan we etu ha na for us ko page 5 well obekan ba be sia na for us ko page 5 well we
networks a short report. Israel. Whole house. Hey, you want to pass a warehouse? Come stand the warehouse.
Whole house.
Whole there.
Prostitution.
Israel. Me who know where?
So, what day maso?
Israel. Whole house of the Middle East. By Reverend Ted Pine. My article, Israel. On the way to empire, Amnesty International in its 2005 report on discrimination against women in Israel says trafficking of women for forced prostitution has occurred over a number of years but appears to have been compounded in the past 15 years by several factors, including increased links between traffickers in Israel and former Soviet republics in the wake of the large wave of immigration of citizens of these countries to Israel. Many women are lured to work in Israel under false pretense and are then forced into sex industry.
Yes.
While many are reportedly aware that they will be working as sex workers, they are not aware they will be subjected to violent and exploitative environments, working 7 days a week and up to 18 hours a day for extremely low salaries or no salaries at all. Many are subjected to other serious human rights violations, including rape, deprivation of their liberty, and death bondage. Women forced to work as sex workers are reportedly also frequently subjected to threats of abuse and even murder. How the women interviewed by the hotline for migrant workers were effectively incarcerated by their pimps, and according to a 2003 survey, almost half of all women sold to pimps reported that policemen were among their clients. Israel. According to a report by the Parliamentary Committee of the Inquiry on the Trafficking in Women Summary Report issued on early 2005, some 3,000 to 5,000 women are brought annually into Israel and forced to work as sex workers, and some 10,000 were estimated to be currently in the country. Most of the women known to have been trafficked into Israel are from Ukraine, Moldova, Uzbekistan, and Russia, and are brought to Israel through the Egyptian-Israeli border. In the course of their journey, many are reportedly raped before traffickers sell them for $8,000 to $10,000. One, Jewish Michael Spector in his article, Slave Traders Lure Slavic Women, confirms Amnesty's report. In Israel, police officials estimate that there are 25,000 paid sexual transactions every day. Brothels are ubiquitous. Once they, that is the women, cross the border into Israel, their passports will be confiscated by pimps, their freedoms curtailed, and what little money they have taken from them, the Tropicana in Tel Aviv's bustling business districts is one of the busiest bordellos. The women who work there, like nearly all prostitutes in Israel today, are Russian. Their bosses, however, are not. Israelis love Russian girls, said Jacob Golan. Jacob Golan, or Israeli, who owns this and two other clubs. They are blonde and good looking and different than us. And they are desperate. They are ready to do anything for money.
What can we?
Then remember no money on down on free.
Offering over the corporate life.
Hey! Really?
Page 5.
Judaism and Islam, darkened religions. Does Judaism alone among the world's great religions provide moral exceptions to God's laws against sexual vice? It's a question. Of course not. That is the answer. Islam gives similar license. Many Muslims believe they can be married for as short as a minute or as long as 99 years. The brothels of Tehran are daily filled with righteous Muslim men involved in 20 minutes marriage. Wow, I'm shocked. Mommy expressing me. The brothels of Tehran are daily filled with righteous Muslim men involved in 20 minutes marriages and divorces with prostitutes. But there's a big difference between the religiously excused sex trades in Iran and in Israel. Islam does not claim to be part of the hallowed Judeo-Christian moral tradition. Okay, that is Judeo-Christian moral tradition. Most evangelicals believe Rabbinic Judaism shares Christianity's essential ethics. Indeed, it is their confidence in shared moral values that prompts their unconditional support of Zionism. They have been massively deceived. Orthodox Judaism's value could not be more distant from Christianity's. In the streets of Israel's major cities, sex slaves are brazenly flaunted, and their pimps and slaves masters go virtually unprosecuted. Why? The Talmudic ethics underlying the state of Israel endorse such hey, that is a degeneracy. The Talmudic ethics underlying the state of Israel endorse such degeneracy. Especially with goyim women. The Talmud and Zohar regard Gentile women as chattel for Jewish men. They are beasts of the earth, not fully human. Talmudic denial of the humanity of Gentile women causes many Orthodox men in Israel to take advantage of the Talmud's rationalization that sex with a Gentile, that is shiksa, whole abomination, is morally neutral.
What I say, I don't say what I say. Talmud no makwai. Say, Juni, any going, a man, it's your more, any dear, only Nipa, sir, as you, any dear, Talmud no, and times are being.
Nipa,
Papa, and your body. And I walk in. Baba, baby. Thank you.
Moment magazine, the magazine of Jewish culture and opinion, says paying sex with blonde Russian girl is a national institution. Even rabbis, says Moment, visit these.
Even who?
Rabbis.
Rabbis in already.
They visit.
They visit those hotels. Time.
Even rabbis. Says Moment. Visit these shiksas in whorehouses.
No, go. You can't go.
A good percentage of the customers or Johns in the lingo are ultra-Orthodox Jews, pious men whose lives are guided by halakha, that is religious law, which tells them when they can or cannot have sex with their wives. So, on Thursday afternoons, boys' night out in Israel, busloads of Orthodox Jews from Jerusalem, Haifa, and points beyond, Tel Aviv, for a few precious moments of passion in a massage parlor behind a sand dune or in an alleyway. Other customers are accountants, lawyers, policemen, and politicians. The entire spectrum of Israeli society is keeping the hookers in business, claims Detective Shaker, that is Shaka, a cynical veteran of the Tel Aviv Vice Detail. Israel does not vigorously enforce its new law against the white slavery for a simple reason. The Talmud repeatedly upholds the right of rabbis to sexually violate their designated bond maids or sex slaves, free of punishment or moral guilt.
What?
The government of Israel can't effectively enforce a law forbidding what the Talmud permits.
What? Did the Ukraine and the Air Force were Tehran and the Air Force were Israel? The difference between. And these are the religious people. The Air Force were Israel.
And Israel is a show background to us.
The Air Force where amnesty report. Amnesty report. Now, when we imagine the tip of the iceberg, Talmud Lumunu, Bahuni,
Yebamot
11B. What's it say?
Yebamot 11B.
Talmud Lumunu, quotations in the
Okay. Sexual intercourse with a little girl is permitted.
If what? How many years?
I can't see this clearly. Sexual intercourse with a little girl is permitted if she's of 3 years of age. Fantastic. May God forgive you. 3 years.
For the next 1,000 years, Jews dwelt in Babylon, absorbing its witchcraft and occultry. In fact, no other nation, except the modern Iraqis, have lived longer in Babylon than the harlot Israel. From the exile of Nebuchadnezzar in 586 BC to their expulsion from Babylon in the 11th century AD, the majority of Jews lived in Babylon for 1,600 years. Longer than they had lived in Palestine. In Babylon, the Pharisees, who had become the uncontested spiritual leaders of the Jews, incorporated many Babylonian perversions into their new anti-Bible, the Babylonian Talmud. In the book of Deuteronomy, God warns the Hebrews that if they rejected him, they would become cursed above all nations. As a result, the Jewish people have been led into a dark and waterless pit of spiritual confusion called the Talmud. For the last 2,000 years, there they have remained under the spiritual authority of the Pharisees, those who masterminded the death of Jesus. 2 millennia of such spiritual darkness is proof that the ancient curse in Deuteronomy still lies heavily on the Jews.
In my book, Israel, Our Duty, Our Dilemma, I detail how Judaism was corrupted by the occult and immoral practices of Babylon. Let's touch very briefly on just one aspect of such depravity, pederasty, or the sexual molestation of children. Today, the greatest rabbis of the Talmud would be locked up as child molesters. Pederasty was deeply entrenched among the most respected Talmudic rabbis. It was taken for granted that the local rabbi could acquire a baby girl at 3 years of age as his sex toy simply by raping her. Here are several passages from many in the Talmud granting such permission. In Nida 45b, a woman asks, "Master, at what age may a woman marry?" "At the age of 3 years and 1 day, he told her. A girl of 3 years and 1 day may be betrothed by intercourse. Rabbi Joseph said, "Come and hear. A maiden of 3 years old and a day may be acquired in marriage by coition. When a grown-up man has intercourse with a little girl, it is nothing." The footnote to this passage says, "Tears come to the eye again and again. So does virginity come back to the little girl under 3 years." Although the Talmud forbids homosexuality among adult Jews, sodomy with small boys is permitted. Leviticus 20:13 forbids sexual relations between men. The Talmud, however, defines a boy under 9 years of age as a minor, not a man. He is excluded from the biblical prohibition. Since the boy is not sexually mature, the Talmud teaches, he cannot throw guilt upon the rabbi who rapes him. Only he who is able to engage in sexual intercourse may throw guilt upon the active offender, whilst he who is unable to engage in sexual intercourse cannot.
It is significant that the pederasty we have mentioned is endorsed by the very greatest rabbis of the Talmud. These include Rabbi Ben Zakkai, Rabbi Ben Yohai, and Rabbi Akiba. Christ accused the Pharisees of all uncleanness. This